First of all, what do you mean by a nation of sheep, that we have become a nation of sheep? Judge, how could you say that?
I can say it first because I believe it's true. Secondly, because it captures the essence of the book. And thirdly, because it's a catchy title. Now, why do I say it's true? I say it's true because we have allowed the Congress to cut serious holes in the Constitution in the case of the Patriot Act without having even read it first. Second, it captures the essence of the book because the essence of the book is we are acting like sheep when we let the government that we have elected take away natural rights that are ours that can only be taken away after we're convicted of a crime. And thirdly, it's a catchy title because it got your blood pressure to go up.
Well, that's the number one thing. I turn to page 12. Much like a newspaper, there are little boxes.
Right.
And the little boxes will, be a sentence from the pages you're reading to catch your eye. And this one caught my eye. The federal government has used fear-mongering as a tactic to seduce the sheep into compliance with its unconstitutional laws, and it has worked.
The fear-mongering that I'm complaining about is when the Bush administration says to the Congress, there isn't time to debate this, which is what John Ashcroft said with respect to the Patriot Act, and therefore you have to vote on it without debating. The fear-mongering that I'm talking about, again, is when John Ashcroft criticized people who criticized the Justice Department by saying talking about phantoms of lost liberty is a waste of time. The debate is a waste of time. Look, I criticize FDR in that book as being a socialist, but he didn't preach fear. Every speech he gave during World War II was uplifting and preached hope. George W. Bush likes to scare people so that they will vote to give up their rights. And some of the scaring has been done behind scenes. We don't even know what it consists of.
Okay, fine. But, Judge, come on. World War II, the Nazis were marching across Europe. The Japanese attacked Pearl Harbor. You had to marshal a huge national effort. You could uplift people. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Right, you won't hear that from this administration.
Well, of course, they don't have the same situation. 9/11, one attack and a bunch of little weaselly guys in caves plotting the next attack. That's what we got. Otherwise, life goes on as normal, and your nation of sheep could be under a tree snoozing while the incoming is whistling by their ear.
If you are the visitee and the visitor at your home is an FBI agent who stands at the front door and writes out his own search warrant, are you going to let him in? You're going to let him in, and then what are you going to do about it? He's going to tell you. He's going to tell you. Well, they've done it to 167,000 people by their own records.
And who are they?
I don't know who they are because they won't reveal the names, but the Inspector General of the Justice Department, a branch of the Justice Department, gave us these numbers, and according to the Inspector General, 27% of them had nothing to do with terrorism, and according to the Inspector General, only 1% of those people were prosecuted. That means that of the 167,000, 165,000 don't even know that they were the subject of a self-written search warrant. But if they show up at your door with one, you can't call a lawyer, you can't tell Susan, you can't tell me, you can't tell your audience on the radio, you can't even tell a federal judge. If you do, it's funny, O'Reilly said the same thing to me the other night, you will be committing a felony because the same act that lets them write their own search warrant says if the recipient of the search warrant tells anyone, that's a felony punishable by 5 years in jail.
Take it up, counselor. We'll go up. They want to prosecute me, we'll go up.
So you disagree with that part of the statute?
Well, I don't like it, but I tell you what, I like who they're aiming it at. I know who they're aiming.
I do know
they're aiming.
27% not terrorism. You know that from the Inspector General. I'd like to see that
number driven down. I know who they're aiming it at. I know who they want to go after, and I want them to go after.
Where does the Congress get the power to change the Constitution? If the Constitution says only judges can issue warrants, where the heck does the Congress get the power to authorize federal agents to issue them? And by the way, if the federal agent is an FBI agent, be happy, because they're pleasant, they're well educated. There are other federal agents you do not want to see on your front door, even if you are Mother Teresa.
This is America, I'm reading from the judge's book. A democracy, not a dictatorship, in which you are forbidden to speak out against a tyrannical dictator. You're telling me that George Bush is a tyrannical dictator and I'm forbidden to speak out against him?
In this respect, that the House of Representatives was not permitted to see the Patriot Act before they voted on it, that the House of Representatives was not permitted to debate the Patriot Act before they voted on it, that the President has stated that he will break whatever law he thinks is necessary in order to secure the Union, which is to violate his oath, and that the president has admitted that he has dispatched thousands to break the law. Richard Nixon was virtually impeached because of a half a dozen cheap third-rate break-ins, and George W. Bush has dispatched thousands to break the law.
During the Civil War, I'm reading from the judge's book,
I
Lincoln
knew you were
closed
gonna get to
newspapers
Lincoln.
across the country, seized telegraph lines so as to censor communications that he perceived as threats to his war efforts. I think you're wrong there. It was threats to the Union. Lincoln, you called the great perverter of the Constitution.
Those threats came from the John Gibsons of the day, courageous journalists who were willing to challenge the administration. He locked up over 3,000 journalists in the North. I'm not talking about
In Maryland.
Southern agitators.
In Maryland.
In Maryland and in Illinois and in Ohio.
Which was going to go south.
And in upstate New York. He locked them up because of what they said.
Was it worth to preserve the Union?
No.
It wasn't.
No.
It would be better to have the North and the South here on the continental, the North America.
I think that the South eventually would have come back for financial reasons, but Jefferson and the guys who signed the Declaration of Independence, and Madison and the guys who signed the Constitution assumed you had the right to secede.
So your opinion, my dear judge.
Of course it's my opinion.
friend,
John,
your
the whole
opinion
book
is
is my
John
opinion.
Wilkes Booth was right.
Oh, no.
Death to tyrants,
No.
he shouted as he shot him.
No, because I do not believe in murder, just like I don't believe in the death penalty.
But he was right. He called him a tyrant.
He was a tyrant. He was the greatest tyrant in American history. He killed 650,000 human beings. His soldiers raped women, robbed banks, and burnt
Civil War.
Burned courthouses. They were Americans. Where in the Constitution?
March to the sea. That's what you're complaining
Sherman's march to the sea was second only to Harry Truman's murder of 250,000 Japanese in 5 seconds in terms of the improper use of presidential power. There you go. I gave you another one.
There were 2 million Americans waiting in ships for the invasion of mainland Japan.
Yes. Here we go with history again.
Many of them were going to die.
Yes.
They did not die because other people died.
The Japanese government was about to collapse, and Truman knew it. The reason he dropped that bomb was to stick it to Stalin, to show Stalin that my scientists are better than yours, and you watch what we can do, Joe.
We did the same thing without nuclear bombs in Dresden.
Dresden was just as bad. The deliberate killing of innocents is not justified.
Did you read Clausewitz? Do you know what total war is?
Yes, I know what total war is, and I know who Clausewitz is, and I haven't read him since college. But all of the treaties that we've entered into since World War II prohibit Dresden, Hiroshima, and Nagasaki.
A bunch of ragtag Islamists who never signed a treaty did it to us, so we have to leave Afghanistan alone?
I don't think we have to leave Afghanistan alone. We could declare war on Afghanistan and fight against the government that took it over. That's a perfectly valid war. We could have declared war on Saddam Hussein, though I don't think he was a threat to us now, but I, like you, thought he was a threat to us then. But we didn't declare war on either of them. We just said to the president, go after these people. It actually would have been easier for him constitutionally had there been a declaration of war.
You know, when you say Lincoln was the great perverter...
Well, Lincoln suspended the writ of habeas corpus.
For a good reason.
But it's unconstitutional, and the Supreme Court said it.
But
the president can't do it.
Does the Constitution have to enable its own destruction?
No, but the Constitution has to restrain the president and the Congress and the courts from taking away freedoms that are natural to us unless there's individual, provable culpability, guilt on the part of the individual person. Lincoln claimed the right to lock people up and throw away the keys. So is George Bush. And the Supreme Court in 1866 said to Lincoln, you're dead, but you were wrong. And the Supreme Court in 2004, by a vote of 8-1, said to George Bush, you're alive and you're wrong.
I'm glad both presidents did what they did. I am not in this nation of sheep. The judge's book, Judge Andrew Napolitano's pictures on the top, A Nation of Sheep. Go check it out.
John Gibson of Fixed News, today's worst person in the world.
Always striving to be the worst to bathtub boy.
You should crawl off into a hole and die.
But the best to you. John Gibson on Fox News Talk.